Good evening, members, and welcome to our cheese and wine pairing event this evening. My name is Catherine from the Tastings and Events team, and I am joined behind the scenes by my colleague Gil, who many of you will also know from our events, both in person and online. I'm very pleased to welcome back Ben from the Fine Cheese Company this evening for this evening's event, which is focused a bit more on the slightly more indulgent and decadent cheeses. So when I put this to Ben as an Easter cheese board event, I was thinking the sort of thing that you would want to have at the end of a bit of an Easter feast, which, as we know, is called the movable feast in many ways. And I'm sure there is a cow pun there, but luckily for you members, I'm not going to try and find it this evening. Now, if you've been coming to our cheese events for a little while, you will have been very familiar with having Anna present these, and I have often been in the background. I'm very pleased to be able to be presenting it this evening. It has meant that I've had to refine my cheese eating technique because more often than not, you've not actually been able to see me enjoy the cheeses while Anna's been presenting. But hopefully you'll be pleased with the choice of presenter for this evening and the cheeses and wines. So if you do have the wines and cheeses with you, I would highly recommend that you taste and nibble as we go with the pairings. We're going to start with the Franciacorta and the Latour. And this evening, we're going to have Ben present the cheeses first, and then I will talk about why I've chosen the specific wines. If you've got any technical problems this evening, you can drop Gil a message directly by addressing Tastings team in the chat, or you can get him on our Tastings team email address, which is tastings@thewinesociety.com. Please do use the chat to let us know what you think of the pairings, if you're enjoying them, or where you are and what you may be drinking. And if you have any specific questions for myself or Ben, please do use the Q&A. So I think we all know what is happening. And yes, John, we would better hurry before the Latour runs off the plate. I did contemplate using a spoon for that this evening, but I may make do with a cracker. So welcome, Ben, and over to you.
Hi, thanks very much, Catherine. Hello, everyone. So as Catherine said, we're starting with the Latour, which is probably running off your plate. I kept mine in the fridge until the very last minute because of that reason. Latour is from northern Italy. It's made by Caficcio del Artelanga in Piedmont. It's a bloomy rind, so as we can see, it's got that white rind. It's wrinkled like we've seen before in other cheeses, so it's Geotrichum. This one's a mixed milk, so it's a bit of cow, bit of goat, a bit of sheep too. The reason they do that, we don't really do that in the UK, but they do that a lot in Europe. And the reason they do that is because they work in cooperatives. So they pool their milk. So farms within a certain area will be rearing cows or sheep or goats. They'll take all of their milk and will give it to a local dairy, and then they will make cheeses from it. And they do that so they can make cheese all year round, basically, and they don't have to follow the lactation cycles. And as we've discussed previously on other Zooms, in the UK we don't do that so much because a lot of the cheeses that we make here, they own their own livestock and they make their own cheese on the farm. So as I was saying, it's a soft cheese. It's pasteurized. It's vegetarian rennet, it's mixed milk, it's super runny. I'm going to taste some. I haven't had Latour for quite a while now.
It is very runny. I don't know, members, if you saw, I did actually just spill some, so be careful as you're eating, members.
So super decadent, as you were saying, Catherine.
Mm.
You get richness from sheep's milk. You got a little bit of goat flavour. It's a little bit citrusy. Yes, gorgeous, absolutely lovely. Really thin rind, and to get that really thin rind is, they have to be very, very skilled. And the rind isn't fully coming away from the paste as well. If you find with cheeses where you get this rind, but the paste is falling out, it means the maturation has been too quick. So as soon as it comes out of its mold, it goes into a room called a hastening room, which is fairly high temperature, 18, 19 degrees, and high humidity, which kickstarts all of these molds going on the outside. But if you leave it in there for too long, it means that the rind develops too quickly and the paste doesn't develop at the same time. So sometimes you see these gorgeous pictures online of all this running cheese coming out of the rind, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's been made in the best possible way. So this will be slow method, so it'll be made over the matter of 2 days, I would say. So they would, once they have got their curds, they would put their curds directly into a mold, and they would let it drain, so let the whey drain really slowly out of the cheese, just keeping a lot of moisture in there. So yeah, have you tried the pairing, Catherine? Tried it together?
I have, and I think, I mean, I don't want to jump the gun, but it may be one of my favourite pairings of this evening. Members, do let us know what you think of the pairing. I think when Ben sent the cheeses or some suggestions for the cheeses, and I was reading the description for the Latour, it's not a cheese I'd ever had before, and seeing it sort of described as an ice cream texture, I thought the perfect thing to have with that would be a sparkling wine, because it's really nice to balance the aeration. We talk a lot about balance in wines. If you've been to our food and wine events before, it's something that we really do go into. And this sort of thing, this texture of food and this texture of wine is something that can work really nicely together. Similarly, in the same way that something like Moscato d'Asti is the perfect partner to ice cream. And when I was thinking an ice cream textured cheese, what sort of wine? A lovely sparkling wine, because you've got the bubbles, the freshness. I did hear as well, I don't know if other members had this, or perhaps Ben yourself, when you're almost breaking into the cheese, because it's got a slight whipped texture, you can almost hear those little air bubbles crackling as it's going, the looseness, and it's really delicious. I really like that sort of lactic lick at the back of your palate once you've swallowed it, and it's got that really nice piquant, slightly earthy, but very, very creamy. I would say it's probably the creamiest cheese I've ever eaten. And yeah, John Britton's it's just as well the rind is edible, John, because there is no way you can really separate it. And why would you want to? But I mean, Ben, I know you were saying before we started that you'd not tried the wine before. What do you think of the pairing before I go?
I think it's gorgeous. And as you say, you want they want those bubbles to, cut through that richness of the cheese, don't you? And the textures go beautifully. And yeah, I love it. I've hardly ever eaten, well, I've eaten this a few times, but it's, as I said before, I very much focus on British cheese, but we don't have anything like this. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I think the pairing, yeah, it's wonderful. You know that I love all the wines that you've picked.
Perfect. So let me tell you, members, a little bit about the Franciacorta that we've got. So this is, if you're a fan of Italian wines and Italian sparkling wines, you may have felt that it's not come too soon to have a Franciacorta on our list. And although the screenshot now is going to show you that it's out of stock, do not fear. We do have more coming in. I checked with our merchandising team. So it is here to stay. If you've not been able to get a bottle yet and would like to try it, it is delicious. It's a traditional method sparkling wine. So you may be more familiar with sparkling wines from Italy, like the aforementioned Moscato d'Asti or Prosecco or even Lambrusco. But this is a traditional method, so very similar to champagne, and actually made with Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. The other permitted grape in the Franciacorta DOCG is Pinot Blanc. This one doesn't have any of that. This is 85% Chardonnay and 15% Pinot Noir. Franciacorta is in the northern part of central northern Italy, so it's up near Lombardy, and you've just seen in the image that we've just had there, Gil, I don't know if we can have it back, please. It's right in the sort of the foothills of the Alps, so you can see at the very back the little mountains and hills at the back there. This Franciacorta is from Ferghettina, and it is made by the Gatti family. That's Roberto and Andrina and their children, who are now adults and enologists in their own right, Laura and Matteo. They have 200 hectares of vineyards in 11 municipalities in Franciacorta. And they adhere to some organic farming principles because they really feel that in doing that, it treats the terroir with the best respect and gives the best quality grapes that they put into their wines. And it is similar in style of production and similar with, or the same with the grapes to a champagne, but I think it is very different. It's a really lovely, freshness and a sweet crispness. So to me, there's a lot of sort of red apple, some pear, there's a bit of lemon in there, nice little citrus lick, and some blossom. And I also think it's got a bit of a mealy character, a little bit of a cereal quality. And that is probably because of the aging that this has had on the lees. So this has had aging for more than 2 years on lees, which gives that lovely textural element and that sort of biscuity, cereally quality, which when you're having it with a really creamy cheese like the Latour, it's almost like you've got a little wafer dipped in there. You've got a little refreshing cracker to have with the piquant, earthy sweetness of the creamy cheese. So I think it's a really, really lovely pairing, and it's a really nice aperitif pairing. But I also think, even though the wine is a dry wine and the cheese isn't overly sweet, it's almost something that you could have to end a meal as well, because you've got that lovely, creamy, almost dessert feel to it. And it is very decadent. So I'm very glad that we did start with this one. But members, let us know what you're thinking as well. We do have a question, Ben, about the Latour. Now, obviously, once it's out, it likes to let loose very, very quickly. So in terms of storage, how long will it last in the fridge? And I suppose that's without being cut or broken into. And perhaps if you do start it, what's the best way? Is it an eat in all one go cheese?
Well, I hope you have this little wrapping around, don't you? Like a bun case around it. I would, if I were you, I would try and wrap it up and then pop it back in its box, and then wrap some like parchment paper around it, or lots of people have that beeswax wrapping or wax paper that depends where the cheese is. Try not to put cling film over the top. But cling film, then moisture will form on the top of on top of the cheese, and it'll ruin the rind, and it'll start basically eating its way into the cheese. So always steer clear of cling film. But if it's completely running off the plate, what I would say is eat it as soon as you can.
Yeah, eat it very quickly, have tiny bits of the rest of the cheeses, and finish this one this evening.
Yeah, when you receive a whole cheese, you can ripen a whole cheese such as this. So you can leave it in a Tupperware in your fridge, which if you put it in Tupperware, it just brings up the temperature a little bit to maybe 7 degrees. And if you leave it for a fairly long time, then you can slowly ripen your cheese. But as soon as the cheese is cut, like the next one, there's no way to ripen that cheese. Or even the next one, we think about a soft cheese. Once it's cut, there's nothing that you can do about it ripening. So if you go to your cheesemonger and they're not giving you a ripe cheese, go to a different cheesemonger, basically, because yes, if it's a cut, it won't ripen anymore. You can bring it to room temperature, but it doesn't mean that it'll enhance any flavors at all in terms of ripening.
That was an inopportune moment to have a little bit extra. I would just address Alan, who's mentioned in the chat that it is a shame that Franciacorta isn't more readily available in the UK. And that's very true. We were talking about this just before we started the event, and it's something that hasn't been on our list for a little while. It's something that a lot of members have asked for, and I'm very pleased to see it on the list. And it was something that we've spoken about with Sarah, she's very much of the opinion, as with all our wines, that until it's a wine that is of the best quality that we want, it won't go on there. But I agree, Alan, it is a shame. And it's a shame that you say Italian fizzy wine or sparkling, and people think Prosecco, and Prosecco has a place. You know, I don't want to dull down Prosecco. There's different levels of the quality of Prosecco. It's got its place, but I think if people are more open to different styles of wine, I would say with the Franciacorta, because it is that traditional method, so the secondary fermentation in bottle, it's made with international grape varieties. There's the Chardonnay, the Pinot Noir, it's got Pinot Blanc permissible. In terms of value, when you're looking at a sparkling wine, you may find that actually you will get a better value for yourself somewhere like the Loire, Cremant-Loire or Cremant d'Alsace, where you've got those similar qualities to the wine. But I do also think that even though they are the same, they are also different. It's like you could say jogging bottoms and jeans are both trousers, but they are very different. So I would definitely recommend members hunt out those different sparkling wines. And if you, Indira's just said this is their first Franciacorta, hopefully it won't be your last. So do find them out. And like I say, we'll be getting it back in stock very soon. So you can stock up, members, if you've found that you've enjoyed it this evening.
I'll definitely be looking out for it.
Perfect. So we've got the next cheese that we'll be going on to. Ben, would you like to share with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So next is Marcel Petite 24-month Comté. And when it came to a decadent cheese board, obviously the first one is very texturally very decadent. But second of all, we have a very hard cheese. So it's hard cooked cheese, which is our 24-month Marcel Petite Comté. So it's raw milk. It's made in the Jura. It's, as we say, 24 months plus. I think when people are buying Comté, they very much say that they like, you know, I like a young Comté and I want to do certain things with it, or I like a 24-month Comté or a 36-month Comté. But what I've actually personally learned recently is that Comté come in many different profiles, and the age of it actually doesn't represent the cheese that well. And in France, they don't do it necessarily. So in the UK, we say this is a 12-month, this is a 24-month, this is 36, and 36 is, you know, super savory and, you know, has all those salt crystals going through it, and, you know, that kind of thing. But actually, Nick, who sources all of our European cheese, he went over to Marcel Petite recently and tasted through many of their Comté. And what they like to do there is look at a profile of cheese. So look at a savory or look at a sweeter, and they will decide whether or not that cheese is going to be a 24-month. 24-month is actually called a symphony from Marcel Petite. So they call it a Marcel Petite Comté Symphony. They don't mention the age. That's just the profile. So we're going to change how we do it, because this is how Marcel Petite do it. So a 12-month is called Saint Antoine, and the 24-month is called Symphony. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be 24 months. It means that it's the right profile. It means that Marcel Petite, who's the affineur, is happy with that profile at a certain age, which I find really, really interesting. Marcel Petite is an affineur. So instead of over here, we have a lot of cheesemakers that also mature their own cheese. In Europe, they don't do that necessarily. They will buy from a fruitier, so someone that makes cheese, who will be given the milk from a farm or a cooperative. And then the affineur may take a certain amount of wheels from this fruitier. So those wheels that they take from the fruitier may also be distributed to other affineurs. So yeah, as you can see on the top left here, Marcel Petite is basically inside on the side of a hill, and that's Benoit here. who looks after Marcel Petite. So you could get the same wheel from one fruitier going to 3 different affineurs, and they wouldn't all taste the same by the time it got to you, which is so different to how we do it here. I need to taste it, but we do look for quite a savoury profile. We definitely like more savoury Comté than sweet Comté.
It's definitely got a really lovely savoury, nutty complexity, isn't it? And I love the crunch of the salt crystals as they're through it.
And you only get that with age, you know, you're not going to get that Saint Antoine. But yeah, it's gorgeous savoury. It actually does have a bit of sweetness to it as well, you have to say.
It's almost like a little slight tropical note. And I don't know if this is going to get me chucked out this evening, but I almost want to say pineapple. With a sort of a cheese and pineapple sort of flavour, without going full Abigail's party. It does have that, but it's lovely. It's got a lovely almost buttery smoothness as well to it. Which
it's absolutely wonderful.
It's really,
it is nutty, but it's toasted nuts. It's caramelized. It's not, it's not young. It's not, fresh and vibrant. It's, you're having to think about it a little bit more, aren't you? It's rich. It's buttery, as you say.
Yeah.
And it definitely becomes more savoury the more you chew, the more that covers your palate.
Absolutely. And Cheryl, we're on the so it's the Muscadet in this pairing. So that's the Le Clos. Now I'll show you the label there. Now Gil is going to do a lovely screen share because I am going to attempt the name. It's very long, so let me take a deep breath. This is the Muscadet Sèvre-et-Maine, Le Haie Fouassière, Le Clos de Château Doisy-Védrines, Chéreau-Carré, 2015. Now, I'm not a French speaker, so I have been practicing that today, but hopefully you will also see it there. Now, we're talking about the age of the Comté and the fact that you get those extra qualities with age, and sometimes it's a cheese that people would prefer young, and that is similar to Muscadet as a grape. So that's Muscadet or Melon de Bourgogne, which is the Loire grape, but it is actually a grape that does respond very well to a little bit of age on it. And that's something that they are very interested in doing and preserving at Chéreau-Carré. So this is a wine that has had it's had a lot of time on lees. It's had around 14 months. Let me double check, but it is yes, it's actually had 33 months on the lees. Now, where they are in Loire is at the convergence of the Sèvre-et-Maine river, and you can see it's that lovely lush and green area in the Loire Valley. So if you are imagining the distance from the sea, it's really not that far at all. They are on the western side of the Loire Valley. So you've got a lovely sort of freshness and ripeness to the grapes. But like I was saying, it's had that maturation on the lees for the 33 months, which incidentally means that it can't have the Sur-Lie qualification because that is too long on lees by the appellation rules. But it does give a really lovely complexity to the wine. It's got a really nice savoury mineral quality, smoky and flinty. And the fruit that's there is a really nice sort of, I think it's a slight tartness from it's a green fruit. So I think there's a bit of a sort of a gooseberry tartness, but I also think there's something perhaps similar to a green gage. So almost that same slight nearing tropical without losing the greenness. It's a very, very fresh fruit there, but you've got that lovely, lovely savoury quality. Roger, Muscadet to die for. That's a bold statement, but I don't think you're wrong. It's really, really delicious. I think the aging on the lees for that length of time, again, you get that texture. For me, it's the complexity that makes it a really, really nice pairing with the complexity of the cheese. And yes, sorry, Andrew, on the lees. So the lees, as Gil said, it's the dead yeast cells. So the sur-lie is the term for having that time to mature on the lees. So it's the dead yeast cells from the fermentation. And it gives that lovely savoury texture and flavour, a little bit like fresh yeast, fresh baker's yeast, or similar to a slight cereal quality, a little bit similar to the mealy texture and flavours that we had in the Franciacorta. But with this one, it's a little bit more flinty and savoury. And savoury, unfortunately, is one of those terms that can mean many different things within the wine world or within any sort of flavour complex. But here, the savoury is almost this might not be that helpful either, because we say about it being a sort of mineral whetstone quality, but a little bit salty. So if you think how close you are to the rivers and to the sea, imagine you've got a bit of a breeze and you've got a little bit of that sea spray on your lips, and then you have the wine with it and you get that lovely, lovely savoury quality. I mean, Ben, what do you think of the pairing with this one?
So I find it really interesting. I think Comté is quite difficult because I think of the texture, it's cut curd, so it has like elasticity to it. But because it's a little bit older, it has like maybe broken down, so it's a bit more grainy. So I always think Comté is quite difficult to pair with, actually, in cut curd generally.
It does have an almost bouncy texture.
Yeah, it does. Exactly, that's what you get from a cut curd cheese, definitely. Cut curd just means that whilst the curds and the whey are in the fat, they bring the fat to a higher temperature, which takes away acidity from the cheese and stretches the proteins. So you end up with a bouncy cheese, basically like a Gouda or Comté or Gruyere. No, I think it's good. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it, like, for me, I don't think it builds into something else or something, you know, it's like a really, like it's a marriage. But I think they go really well together. They're not separate on the palate. They definitely do something. It might bring out like a slightly more bitterness, I think. Again, bitter, as we said many times, you know, it's not bad in cheese or in wine. You know, you need that complexity.
I agree. I would say when I was sort of pairing the wines, in contrast, which is same but different, I would say that the cheese brings out the fruitiness in the wine, which would go hand in hand with it bringing out slightly the bitterness of the cheese.
No, I mean, I love the wine again. You know that. I think it's gorgeous. Yeah, really, really good.
Indira has agreed to say it's not a marriage, it goes. I mean, sometimes Indira, that's all we can hope for. But it is nice to see with these pairings that, like we say with a lot of our food and wine events, it's not always going to be everyone's perfect cup of tea. It's not going to go perfectly for everyone, but that's what's really nice about it, is to see that contrast and to see why, and to understand why it might not go for someone and why it also might for someone else. So it's it's one of the more interesting ones, and it is something that, like you say, is a harder cheese to pair with. But I think it can go. And Richard and Chris have said it's going very well with the Latour. So that's what's lovely as well. It gives you an excuse to eat the rest of your Latour this evening. So
I think as well, it's so subjective, isn't it? You know,
absolutely.
You know, every cheese is subjective, every wine, and the pairings are subjective too. So, you know, what goes for one person may not go for another. Everyone highlights, you know, certain parts. People maybe are more prone to taste bitterness or sweet or savoury. So yeah, no, I you know what, it's one of the best pairings I've had with Comté. It's a really tricky one.
Yeah, Ainsworth is saying that the cheese would be lovely with walnuts. Now that's a very interesting comment, because it's that toasty nuttiness, isn't it? I think you've got that absolutely spot on with the sort of, and you get that extra protein flavor. You can't taste protein, but it is a textural element as well. I think when you can find on your tongue that mouthfeel from the richness of the cheese and that toasty element. And talking of the cheese and extra bits and the different flavor you get, with the different part of the cheese you're eating. We've had a question from Debbie about whether it's right to eat the rind on this one. She has been. I have also tried it with the rind. Would you suggest eating the rind on this one, Ben? Or
I mean, you can eat the rind. Nothing will happen. Nothing bad will happen. But we wouldn't say that this is a cheese that we would recommend eating the rind because you will get more from the cheese. Something like a bloom rind or a wash rind, certain blues, if they're natural rind, we would suggest. So Comté is obviously, it's been, or this Comté especially, it's been matured for more than 24 months. And within that time, it's been rubbed with salt and brined many times on the rind. Nothing would have happened to it. It's just, you don't have to eat it. Lots of people don't eat the rind on blue, but I love the savouriness of a blue rind. So if you like it, then eat it. And if you don't, then don't, I think. But nothing's going to happen. No safety issues there at all.
I think that's the perfect way to sum it up, is if you like it, go ahead. If you don't have to, but if you do, crack on. Now, the next pairing, members, maybe a slightly divisive one as well. I think when I put this one to Ben that I wanted to perhaps include this cheese, there was a slight, I don't want to say concern, but a slight questioning as to what was going to be paired with it. And I think what is paired will work. So we're going to go on to the truffle Baron Bigod, and that is paired with the Mencia, so the red in today's lineup. So Ben, I'll let you do the cheese first, and then I'll come in to fight my wine corner.
So I've kept mine wrapped in the perforated paper because I know this one's going to go all over the plate too. Or your board or whatever, but I mean, this is the super decadent one, isn't it? It's a bloomy rind, it's raw milk, it's traditional rennet, and then it's super ripe, and you've got mascarpone and truffle in the middle. So Baron Bigod is Johnny Crickmore on the left-hand side with his Montbéliard cows. We've done Baron Bigod before, but we've never done truffle Baron Bigod. So for those of you that haven't been on the Zoom that we did Baron Bigod, I'll tell you a little bit about it. So it's made in Suffolk. It's based on Brie de Meaux. So Johnny decided that he wanted to make a bloom rind, but raw milk. He's head of the Raw Milk Association for the UK. So he bought some Montbéliard cows. He brought them over from France. He uses only traditional methods. He uses a lot of geotrichums on the outside, where you might see more wrinkles or where it goes darker patches. Sorry. That's the geotrichum, and the white is candidum. You can see here they're about, I would say, 24 hours old. So they've been turned at that point around 4 times. What they look for on the outside here, and which they really love, you see those little rivets in the cheese. That's what they look for, is curd formation. Then you see lots of little dots on the outside, and that's the yeast coming to the outside of the cheese, and they want the yeast to come to the outside. So the yeast is the geotrichum, so it's forming that rind. So in a soft cheese, a lot of the time you have that white candidum, which gives a really good coating but slightly bitter, and then you have the brain-like structures, which is geotrichum, which is really complex and tones down the candidum, but it doesn't give a really good rind to a cheese. So Johnny makes cheese over in Suffolk in a place called Bungay. He also does Bungay butter and does skyr, and he also makes mascarpone. So what he does is they ripen their Baron Bigod. They're 1 kilo Baron Bigods. They also do them 3 kilo. They do a baby Baron. But they cut the 1 kilos in half. They make their mascarpone. Then they mix it. They buy. So we import. Fine Cheese Co. imports Italian truffles. So Fen Farm buy the truffle from us. Then they mix it with their mascarpone, and then they put it in the middle, and then put the top back on, and then yeah, sell it as it is. I haven't tasted this yet, and as you say, Catherine, I was a bit skeptical because putting truffle on a tasting, I can never imagine anything, working with truffle. So empowering, but let's see.
It's definitely one of my bolder pairings that I've put together. Before I say anything, members, let me know if you are trying the Mencia with the Baron Bigod. Let me know what you think, even if you don't enjoy it.
Do you know what? It cuts out that, I think, that more perfume side of the truffle, and then you go back to the slightly bitter rind, which I want. It's refreshing. I get much more earthy tones, much more woodland. I think you might have got that. I think that's yeah.
I don't want to get too much of wanting to do a victory lap around my living room, but it looks like members are also enjoying it. The last thing I've seen is Richard and Chris saying the aroma is big. I would say yes. Big is what we've gone for here. It is bold. It is a strong flavored pairing. So I think if you're not perhaps in tune with those really, really strong flavors, then perhaps it might not be the pairing for you. Elizabeth said the cheese tastes like mushroom soup, not cheese. Can't taste it. It is very mushroomy. Very truffly. I think it's got a lovely, it's almost sort of a buttered mushroom quality through that. Very strong. Almost don't want to taste the cheese with anything else. So I think when I tried the cheese, now I've had truffle Bigod before, and I really like it. But I also really like that truffle flavour, and it's got that really lovely wild garlic, sort of wet garlic quality to it. Now, members, I don't know if anyone has been able to go foraging yet this year. There is a park near me where some wild garlic grows. I've been able to get a few sprigs, and it does have that quite perfumed garlic, savoury, but also fragrant. There's a lot going on, and it is a pairing that needs a lot going on for it. I did also try it. So Mencia, being the wine, this is the Valtuille Mencia. It's from northern Spain. It is perhaps described as Spain's answer to a Burgundy. And I did think with that description, I would try it with a red Burgundy and the cheese. Unfortunately, the Burgundy did not stand up to it. It almost made it a little bit too metallic because of the savoury quality in the cheese and the real strong truffle aromas and quality to it. But I think with this, you've got a lovely, juicy, fresh wine. It's still a little bit musky sweet itself. And because it's got a bit of that sort of earthy, mulchy quality, it's not too dissimilar in the flavors you're going to be getting from the cheese. So there's enough similarity that they're not a real jarring combination. I think as well, if you were just to have this with the mascarpone center, I really like it, but if you were just to have that, it is quite a strong combination. But because you've got that lovely creaminess either side, sandwiching it together, this brings out the creaminess, which balances out the strength of the truffle in the center, and it's got a lovely bit of a grip to it as well in this wine. So You've got that nice, again, textural balance. There's a little bit of grip from tannin. There is a bit of grip from texture. This is Mencia, which is an indigenous variety to Spain, but it also has a couple of native varieties in there as well, a little bit of Garnacha, Tintorera and Bastardo, which add to that sort of rustic quality to the wine. But it is also got a nice refinement to it as well. So this is from Bierzo. So we've got the map up there. And if we can see, yes, thank you, Gil. So we've got where the cursor is. So in the northwestern part of Spain. Now, this is made by Castro Ventosa, which was founded by the Perez family in 1752. And they have owned the vineyard and the winery ever since. And it's in the Bierzo Dio, which is the denominación d'origine. And it's in the province of Castilla y León, which is just above Portugal. So you could perhaps compare this to some sort of Douro varieties, but I think it's got a little bit more plushness to it, I would say. And Bierzo is in a small valley. It's surrounded by mountains, so it's got a really specific microclimate. The low altitude means that there is low frost or no frost in the winter, and then in the summer months, the warmth means you get those lovely ripe grape growing conditions. You've got a mixture of the quartzite and slate in the soil, which gives some excellent drainage as well. So while you're getting those lovely ripe flavors, you're not getting overly jammy grapes. It's classy, it's perfumed, it's something that I think it is lighter in body. And we've just had a question from Indira about why was it suggested to put the wine in the fridge. So if you did chill this, I hope you might find that actually by chilling it, you will have those aromatics, the lovely red fruits coming out that little bit more in the wine. If you didn't, you shouldn't have lost those aromatics and those flavors and that profile of the wine, but chilling it just helps bring a little bit of freshness and brings it out a little bit more. In the converse way, if you allow a white to warm up a little bit, again, you'll get a bit more of those flavors coming out. So if you find that you want a little bit more freshness in your reds, pop them in the fridge for a little bit just before serving. I think it is. I think it's a great pairing. I think it's one that is very strong and out there, but I am pleased with it.
Yeah, you wanted truffle, didn't you?
I did want truffle. This in here.
Did you do a decadent cheese tasting? I mean, truffle's one that separates, isn't it? It's that divide.
It is.
People love it. Some people hate it. It's a bit marmitey. And people mention those mushrooms and mushroom soup. It is mushroomy and it is earthy.
Yeah.
It comes from the same place. So yeah, no, I completely get it. So yeah, and someone said about the plain vanilla Baron Bigod. Now, Baron Bigod is definitely not plain vanilla. Baron Bigod is such a beautiful cheese. But I know exactly where you're coming from. Personally, I love cheese as it is. I love it. How it was meant to be made. But there are many, many qualities to having truffle in a cheese too. And they're all good products, all sourced or made in the right way. So yeah.
I have a question with this one, Ben, actually, because I'm not going, as much as I would like to, I'm probably not going to just be able to just finish the cheese as it is. Would I be mad to be using it in cooking because it's got that lovely truffle flavour and the lovely rich quality?
Not at all. I went over to Johnny's last year. I stayed there for too long, actually. But we had a barbecue one night and we did steak on the barbecue, and then we just put some truffle Baron into some little pots and just cooked it away on the barbecue. And then we had steak and we had a truffle Baron sauce.
Wonderful.
It was great.
That is the rest of my dinners for this week sorted. Sam and Clive have suggested trying the Comté with the red. So members, do go back to that if you've got some Comté to hand. I think that's a very good suggestion. And as much as this has been an interesting pairing, I hope members you have enjoyed it. Tracy, yes, you could make a good pasta sauce with it. I think that's a good suggestion. I was thinking stuffing it in some chicken. I don't know if I'll let you know how I get on, members, but we've got
in between the skin and the breast of the chicken, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could almost get a sort of a Kiev going on with it, with the truffle in there. Now, just to touch on the sort of the pricing of cheeses. So it's a very valid question from Indira. This selection was a little bit more expensive than ones we've done previously. And that is because we're thinking, you know, it's a little bit celebratory. It's that decadent, that more indulgent cheese selection. Is it the truffle that set that apart? And I would second that question with, is it that perhaps English cheeses are a little bit more expensive than their continental European counterparts, similarly to perhaps when we think about English wines being a little bit more expensive based on the demand and the availability of them? Is that a
bit of all of it?
Suggestion?
Bit of all of it, yeah. So British cheeses are more expensive. Generally, you know, they're made generally by a family on their own farm with their own livestock, treating their own land, and they have to employ people to help them in cheese making on the farm. So yes, it does cost a lot more. And you know, in Europe they do it fantastically, and they have cooperatives, as we've spoken about before, and so it pulls everything together, and it does make the cost a lot lower. But also we've had pretty old Comté that costs a lot of money. The older it is, the more it costs, because it takes more people to look after it for longer. And also you can't just use any Comté, for example, to make 24-month Comté. It has to be tasted young, and then decided when it's young if it's going to be 24-month. So it's a lot of skill. And then we have black summer truffle in Bigod. Now, Bigod isn't a cheap cheese anyway. It's British, it's raw milk, it's, you know, lots and lots of people have spent a lot of time making this cheese. And then we're adding mascarpone, which is another added ingredient. And then we're sourcing truffle from Italy. So that's an extra cost too. Now, Latour brought the price down a little bit. And the next cheese, which is Fourme d'Ambert, is also a little less expensive. But generally, we don't change the price. Nothing changes. They're the same as they are on the website. All we do is, if they're smaller portions, then we just half it. So it's exactly the same as it is as we sell it in any other market.
I think absolutely, with the particularly the truffle baron, when we're thinking with the truffles, you've got that seasonality element to it that, you know, he talked about the Latour, and then being able to, because they're using the combination of milks, it means that they're able to, correct me if I'm remembering wrong, but in terms of making it, there's that little bit more flexibility there. With the truffle baron, you've got to make it when you've got truffles available. So that does mean that there's a higher demand on people picking the truffles and being able to get the core ingredients, which sounds mad to talk about ingredients for a cheese, but with one like this that does have those additions, as delicious and as aptly they are, it does add those extra elements that does make it a little bit more expensive. But I would say, if you aren't a chocolate fan, and you think of all the chocolate that you're having at Easter, I don't think this is necessarily too far off in those sort of the richness and the real treat cheeses. And I think the wines actually that we've chosen this evening have actually been able to be quite reasonable as well, in the value of the pairing. So hopefully you've found that. Oh, Lorraine's glowing recommendation from Lorraine. They've had a rival cheese tasting with a rival organization, but this one wins hands down. So thank you, Lorraine, and we will We'll absolutely be carrying on with that. And as we are carrying on, shall we go on to the next and final pairing, Ben, which will be pairing with the Doisy-Védrines. So that's the blue cheese.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, the last cheese is Fourme d'Ambert, so the only blue cheese that we have. Fourme d'Ambert is pasteurized, but it's traditional rennet. It's blue. It's got a natural rind, which is very unlike many French blue cheese, actually. It's been around since the 8th century, so it's one of France's oldest cheeses. They actually used to use it for currency or as currency. My French is so terrible, but it's jassière, or it's Jasseries. Basically, little huts in the mountains where you would keep animals or you would make cheese. But yes, this used to be used in currency in the 18th century. There's been many uses for Fourme d'Ambert over the years. But yes, as I was saying, it's a natural rind. So many of the cheeses in France, they, for example, Roquefort, probably the most famous, they wrap it in foil. So wrapping in foil when maturing means that you're keeping lots of moisture in the cheese, and it doesn't form a rind like this. So it's a different style of blue cheese. So high moisture content in Roquefort, for example, or Bleu d'Auvergne or Bleu de Corse. They're all from Roquefort isn't, but everything else is from the Auvergne region. Yeah, this is it's in a cylinder, so it's quite high. It's 2 kilo. If you buy it, then you'd expect if you buy a 250 gram or something like that, you get it as a round. And again, it's one of those things that you can put in the center of the table and you can dig out. And that's what they used to do. They used to cut them in half, and you used to dig it out like you do at Christmas with a Stilton in the UK. So fairly high moisture content, but less so than other French cheeses. It's really buttery. The bluing is always absolutely beautiful in Fourme d'Ambert. If you remember, the bluing comes from piercing the cheese. So you put the blue culture, so the Roquefort, in at starter culture phase, right at the beginning. And then when it's been matured for 2-3 weeks, they'll pierce holes inside, and that starts to form the blue. So it's quite dense, I would say. The curds are quite close, which gives, I would say, more texturally like butter. But then you get some really lovely. I've tasted this one already, and I actually tasted it with the red to see how it went with that. But yeah, I love it. It's more of a cooling blue. It's really like earthy. You get lots of blue that's quite spicy, quite peppery. But this blue is cooling. We've had Stichelton before, and Stichelton's a cooling blue too. And it's biscuity. Definitely has biscuit qualities to it. Eat the rind on this as well, because I think the rind, I haven't tasted it yet, but and they'll add more savoury notes.
It's really cooling, isn't it? I almost want to suggest that it's almost minty, that feel, as if you eat a bit of cheese and then breathe in suddenly, and it feels very cool and very clean.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Absolutely beautiful. I haven't tasted. I need to pour myself some Sauterne.
Let me sorry, members. It's really difficult to stop eating this one. If you have it as well, let us know how you're getting on. And I love as well with the contrast in the color with this cheese. I find a lot of blue cheeses, the blue is nice and strong, and then the cheese around it, shall we say, always has a little bit of or more often has a little bit of a yellowy tone, whereas this one has that real nice white and blue contrast, and it's a real clean tasting. In my notes I've put only a little farmy whiff, which in terms of descriptors of a blue cheese, it's not, I think if you were a blue cheese beginner, this would be a good one to try with.
Yeah, I agree. It's not overpowering. You know, it doesn't give you too much. You have those familiarities, such as the paste that you're talking about around the blue. You have that reminiscence of butter, so you're happy with that texture. Yeah, it doesn't go crazy on your palate. And it's pretty gorgeous with that Sauternes, by the way.
Yes, so members, let me tell you about this wine. So this is the Château Doisy-Védrines Barsac 2015. This is one which is one of our museum release wines. Now, if you're not familiar with our museum release sort of, they're not necessarily a range, but a way we have the wines is where our buyer, so Tim Sykes for this one, has bought the wine, and he will have bought it a while ago when it was sort of first available, but has kept it tucked away until it is at its optimum for us to be drinking. And as you can see, this is going up to 2035, so there is still time on this one, but it is beautiful now. And you've got a really lovely barley sugar caramel. There's a bit of candied peel, and again, I'm coming back to pineapple, but a little bit like a pineapple syrup, almost like you've had a tin of pineapple and you've got that freshness and that sweetness in the residual syrup rather than the fresh pineapple in itself. It also has a little bit of a muskiness itself, the wine. So with the blue of the cheese, you've got that lovely balance, but the creaminess of the cheese is perfectly in partnership with the sweetness. This is perhaps not as fresh in acidity as other Sauternes you may be familiar with, members, but I think that's beautiful with this creamy, rich, salty flavored cheese. It doesn't need extra freshness for these to be in partnership. It works really beautifully together. This is from so it's Château Doisy-Védrines, and this might be a chateau you're familiar with. They have been in Barsac since 1946. It's a second growth property, but it does remain one of the lesser known chateaux because it produces delicious sweet wine, as you have in your glass if you have it, but in small quantities. So similar to the Franciacorta that we had at the start, this is a wine that this particular wine from this chateau is one that you may not be as familiar with because of its availability. And it's not overly exclusive, it's reasonable in price, but it's just the availability of the grapes and the quality there that means it is, I mean, it's £34 a bottle, which I think for this size, this is a 75 centilitre. You're not getting a half with this at £34. I think that's very good value. And it is going really, really nicely with the cheese. The chateau is owned by the Castella family. They've been owning it since 1946. And the winemaker, Olivier, he believes that the natural acidity of the wine needs to be balanced by the sweetness. They do tend to be richer and fuller than other Barsacs, making it a really delicious pudding wine. But like the Bordelais do, it's also one that you would have as an aperitif. You have this with the richness of this cheese. You'd also have it with a lovely rich pate. This is 85% Semillon and 15% Sauvignon Blanc. So we've got a picture of those two grape varieties that we can share. And I think, there we go. So we've got the Semillon on the left and the Sauvignon on the right. And if you're familiar with these noble rot variety wines, you'll know that the way they get their lovely characteristics is through the Botrytis cinerea fungus and the natural susceptibility that Semillon has to it. So if you can see, the grapes on the left-hand side hopefully you can almost see that the skin looks that bit thinner to the Sauvignon. So it means that those grapes can get beautifully infected, may not be the right word, but beautifully affected by the noble rot, and produce those lovely flavors of that candied peel, that caramel, a little bit of candied ginger in there as well. And then you get that aromatic lift from the Sauvignon Blanc in the blend. So it's that 85-15% partnership. You also get that lovely freshness and the acidity from the Sauvignon, but because it is that bit smaller in the overall blend, you do have a lovely richness and intensity from it as well. It's one that will age quite nicely as well. We can keep it between 3 to 20 years. So as this goes on, you'll get more of a Haie quality to it. And that freshness of fruit will subdue slightly. It will go to a bit more of a dried fruit, maybe some dried apricots, some crystallized ginger rather than the stem ginger. But it will go beautifully. And absolutely. Oh, Indira said you can pop your blue cheese on your steak as well as we're going. Absolutely. But I think the Doisy, now I think I've said that all of these partnerships might be my favorite one, but Ben, I'm going to put it to you. What is perhaps your favorite pairing from this evening? And members, let us know your one as well in the comments if you've been trying along with us.
I haven't tasted everything, like every wine with every cheese actually, which is always really interesting when you do that, because you can pick up other things from the wine or from the cheese from different pairings. For me, I really like the first pairing. I really like the fact that I found something new. I'd never heard about this before, and I'll definitely be buying it again. I think it's gorgeous and refreshing, and I think the bubbles went perfectly with the texture of the cheese. I think I found loads of fruit in it, and I didn't find it over acidic, and I love that. And then the cheese, is, as we were saying before, those lots, very creamy in texture, really rich, and for me, it was those two. I thought they were a very good pairing.
Perfect. I'm not going to tell you my favorite one yet. I'm still deciding, but thank you, members, for sharing yours through. There's a couple of questions and comments that have come through. The first one I will address. John, you mentioned that my wine looks a slightly different colour to Ben's. They are the same vintage. Mine has just gone on top of a little bit of red wine. So unfortunately, it's got a slight rose gold colour rather than the pure gold. And I also do have blue walls, which may have affected it, but they are the same vintage. And there was a question as well on the Sauternes in terms of how long it will be able to last after uncorking. Well, Ainsworth, that really depends how long you can keep it away from your glass. But I would say if you've got this one in the fridge, I would say, depending on your method of closure, whether you use perhaps a vacuvan and get a little bit of the air out, or if you're just using a cork popped back in, a vacuvan, you'd probably get about a week with this one and keeping that freshness. With just a cork in there, I would say maybe 4 days, 4 or 5 days. The key thing is that if you know you're not going to finish it this evening, which good luck to you if you are, definitely getting in the fridge as soon as you can. So as soon as you can get it chilled and you don't let it get too warm, too much oxygen into it, get something popped in the opening and get it popped away. And then you can enjoy it for at least a week. Or Tim, yes, you could freeze it. Are you talking about the cheese or the wine? I'm not sure. I would suggest freezing the Barsac. You'd make a very, very delicious, expensive ice lolly, but absolutely try it if you like. But actually that does lead very nicely, Ben, onto a question we've had about the cheese and about freezing the cheese. Now, the cheeses that we've had this evening, are they all available? Are they all able to be frozen? Are there ones that you would recommend not freezing? Or?
Yeah, I mean, you can freeze any cheese. That's completely up to you. I think with hard cheese, It'll last a few weeks, maybe 2 weeks. You'll get mold growth on it, but you can just scrape the mold off. You know, if it's got mold growth, then it's doing its job. It's got moisture in there. You want a bit of mold growth. Soft cheese will decline pretty quickly. So yeah, you can freeze it. If you're going to freeze it, I probably wouldn't put it on a cheese board. I probably cook with it. And before you freeze it, if you're thinking that, you know, there's too much for one portion, I would probably portion it up before you freeze it, and then defrost it and cook with it. But for me, I wouldn't put it on a cheese board once it's frozen. The texture will change, moisture content within the cheese will change, and you won't get the same flavors from the cheese either. But yes, of course, freeze it if you'd like to cook with it, in my opinion.
Perfect. And talking of storage, Stuart has asked, should the red wine be kept in the fridge? You don't have to keep it in the fridge. The main point would be to not have a fluctuation in temperature. That is more detrimental than if it's slightly too warm or slightly too cool. You don't want to flip-flop between the two. Having said that, you can keep it in the fridge. I would suggest that your conventional kitchen fridge might be a little bit too cold to keep it in there long term. If you're thinking just overnight or for a couple of days, absolutely pop it in and let it warm up a little bit gently before you want to try it, before you want to drink the rest of it. So take it out sort of a half hour before you're wanting to enjoy it. Don't put it next to the oven to try and warm up quickly. That's how you cook your wine, and you'll lose anything that you really wanted from it. But bring it out and let it bring itself back up to a slightly warmer temperature. But absolutely, you can pop it in the fridge to keep it. And Tim has assured us, as a scientist, that you can freeze some wine, just leave a little bit of room to expand it. I do think your suggestion of microwaving it, Tim, is a little step too far. I don't think I could do that to a wine. So I think I will try and just enjoy this one as it goes. So members, do let us know if you've got any other questions this evening, and I will, can you tell I'm killing time before I let you know my own favourite pairing? We do have one question from Indira, Ben, and this is something that perhaps is relevant because we've had an Italian wine and an Italian cheese, but we've not actually had this type of cheese. And she's asking about whether you sell cheese with maggots, being an Italian delicacy.
It's called Casimazzi. You're actually not allowed to import it into the UK. So no, we definitely don't. I've had it at Bra. So in Bra, in northern Italy, there's a huge raw milk cheese festival every 2 years. And obviously lots of Italian cheese there, but also British cheese and French cheese, and you know, lots of countries. But anyway, that's where I've had it. But yeah, we're not allowed to import it into the UK. Yeah, it's a funny one. You know, they introduce maggots into the cheese to eat away at the cheese, which obviously causes huge fermentation and etc. And yeah, it's very, very interesting.
Excellent. Cheryl, that was the cheese that has maggots within the cheese. I don't know, Gil, if you're able to pop that in the chat, the name of it. But safe to say you won't be seeing that members in one of our cheese packs or cheese events in the future. Now, I will let you know my favourite pairing, and it may not be a surprise, but it is the Mencia, the Valtuille Mencia with the truffle Baron Bigod. I hope, members, if you have had any of the cheeses and wines this evening, you've enjoyed them and you've enjoyed the pairings and the event itself. We do have more coming up. We have a spring cheese event, which will be on the 5th of May. That has gone onto our website only today, actually. So you can register for that one. And as soon as we have the wines and cheeses confirmed, we will let you know. And there is also a little bit later on in the year, later on in the next month or so, we've got a French specific cheese and wine event as well that will be back with Anna. So it'll be myself again for the spring cheeses, and then Anna back with French. So thank you very much, members, for joining us. To echo member sentiments from the chat, thank you for the engagement. It's been very interesting, and I'm definitely going to be rereading this chat this evening because there's a lot of really great, interesting comments in there. Adrian, I'll have a look at the June event being booked because it shouldn't be. So we'll get that sorted. Thank you very much, Ben, for joining us again, and thank you for the cheeses, for indulging my indulgent side with the cheeses and trusting the choices we've made. And thank you, members, and thank you very much, Gil, as well, for your excellent hosting of the slides and the technical elements behind the scenes this evening.
Cool. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers.